Like I have certain player preferences when it comes to grouping and wanting to stick with my team and that sort of thing. But it's by no, and I do want the game to be better for people who are part of guilds. But of course, I don't want that to come at the cost of making others feel bad for not being in a guild. It's kind of a careful balance. Like people were saying that I was trash talking them when I was talking about Raid Finder. I'll have to like relook at what I was talking about. I think people were thinking that I was talking down on them, and if that's how they took it, that's my bad. I really don't mean to make people feel like people who run Raid Finder are like second class players or anything like that. I think it was because I was supportive, or I was okay with having Raid Finder difficulty come out later, or have it come out on a later schedule as it does right now. And I shared my thoughts on it, knowing that I was going to get shit for it. But I shared my thoughts. I said something along the lines of, reason why I don't want Raid Finder to come out at the same time is because I don't want that to kind of interfere with my whole headspace when I'm trying to progress through a raid for the first time. Like I don't raid test, I don't look up guides, I don't do any of that stuff. I like going in blind. And so I should be able to tell myself, just don't do Raid Finder if it comes out fully unlocked right at the start of the season or whatever. Like, don't do it. Don't spoil yourself. Just wait until you see it with the rest of your team or whatever. But of course, knowing that there's like easy to get gear from that, I then think to myself, well, it'd be stupid for me to not run that. And I think people didn't like that. I think people didn't like the fact that that was one of the reasons why I am okay with the Raid Finder schedule as it is. So what would work? I think there's probably an in-between compromise for that. Or maybe I'll make into a video. Maybe I'll make into a conversation thing where I'm like, hey guys, here's how I feel about this. And I'm totally open for the critiques here. I just want to start a conversation. Why is it that Blizzard does this, and why haven't they changed it? Because they haven't, because it's been like this from the very, very start. I think the way that it started was in Dragon Soul was that the raid opened up. It opened up on all difficulties, which was just normal, heroic, and Raid Finder. But the Raid Finder version only opened, I believe, I think it was half of it day one. And then the rest of it opened up maybe like a week or two later. So it was still pretty fast. And I think people like appreciated that at the time, but they didn't know any better because it was the first time. And then afterwards they had like this kind of staggered release. So now I'm wondering to myself, I'll try to jot this down and then maybe I'll talk about it, like I said, in some separate video. What if they did put it out early, but it didn't quite drop the gear? I don't know. I'm just kind of like throwing stupid ideas out there. But like, what if only the first couple bosses dropped stuff, and then the rest of the bosses, they didn't drop the gear like from the loot tables, but it did drop, I guess in this example, flight stones and crest fragments so that people can progress through and like get things out of it. And otherwise people can look ahead, can peek ahead and get their jollies, get their adventure out of it. Would that be okay? I don't know. Or should perhaps Raid Finder be like its own separate thing where they'll still get gear somehow, but the scheme is going to be different. So like with Raid Finder, you get a Raid Finder currency, right? Only for Raid Finder. And it'll give the gear. You can buy the gear. It'll just happen to be slower. But then as time passes, then the loot tables will still open up. So what if Raid Finder people can just get both? Would that be so bad? I don't know. And so I think that's what I want to just kind of get people to think about. And maybe you'll dig your heels in and be like, no, it should be like this. We should just get everything at the same time. And that's fine. I'm just thinking that it hasn't changed really at all ever since Raid Finder became a thing way back in Cataclysm. There are reasons why it's been like that. And I think the WoW team has like spoken on that a little bit. The rest of it is just kind of like stuff that we make up. But I'm curious to hear what other people think. So some folks in chat are like, same here. If I was able to do it right away, I would do it for gear easy peasy. You would still need to have something drop to incentivize people to run. I agree with that. It shouldn't be like, it shouldn't be like Warlords. Let's give them inferior gear. I don't think that's the right approach at all. That definitely makes those players feel like second class folks, and that don't feel right. So yeah, that's kind of the thought right now. Maybe people will be receptive to that, where it fully opens up just like all the other difficulties. Not all the gear drops. That's still going to be like time gated, I guess, where the first couple bosses drop gear and then the rest don't, and so on and so forth. But if you do decide to keep queuing up and get stuff, then you'll get like flight stones and crests and God knows what. I don't know. That might be an incentive enough. And then as the weeks roll along, then the loot tables will be introduced. So yeah, the bosses are fully open. The loot tables are still time gated. How would people think? What would people think about that? Or what could be ideas that we can think up from that? Maybe this is just a jumping off point for something cool. So here's the trick. Someone was asking, what maybe as the season goes on, the gear item level in Raid Finder increases, so that close to the end of the season, you're getting gear that is of normal or heroic item level. Okay, so let me try to pull this up. Let me pull up my handy dandy chart. What is Raid Finder gear now? Raid Finder gear is somewhere here. Raid Finder gear drops here. It drops item level 402 to 411, but you can still upgrade it with veteran crests and take it all the way up to item level 424, which is like the middle of normal raid gear. So it's not bad. It's not great relative to maybe your skill, but it's still like something. And that's built in. This is what's coming in 10.1 in season 2. I think people at the moment, because this is a very complicated thing, it's hard for someone to fully digest. I don't think they quite realize yet just what this gear is capable of. I think that's really cool. And then think of like people who just raid normal. They just do normal stuff. They are doing, they're getting item level 415 gear from normal, and it can be upgraded all the way up to 437. And that's a long road. That's a lot of upgrades. That's a lot of farming. That's a lot of boss killing. That's a lot of collecting crests from, Drake crests and worm crests. But as you're doing that stuff, you'll get these things, and you'll be able to slowly upgrade that gear throughout the course of the season. And it's still going to take a while. And we just learned today about Mythic Plus with how Mythic Plus key levels are going to change a little bit too. Where starting at key level 7. Up, instead of 4, it's at 7 you get the first affix. Or I'm sorry, the second affix. It's a fortified or tyrannical. At key level 7, you're gonna get that second affix, whatever those are. And then all the way at 14, that's when you finally get the second one. So if you run 13s, if all you run are 13s, you're going to get champion level gear that can be upgraded all the way up to item level 437. Maximum item level is 450 for context. So again, I think that this is something that I really tried to push, or I really tried to talk about early on. I think ultimately this new sort of upgrade scheme is going to kind of slide in as like this low key thing that is hard to understand at first, but as you're playing through it and people are getting this gear and people are seeing that they have all these pieces that have like incomplete upgrade levels, and there are paths in order to get that thing up to higher levels. That's going to be a pretty cool thing that folks will be able to work for, regardless of how you play. Whether it's Raid Finder, whether it is you and your friends and family that just do normal, or if you're pushing keys, it's a lot more access for people. I think this is pretty neat.